Section 1. Is defeat imminent? Signals from land and sea, the constant hum of radar screens, the beeping of sonar, and the chatter of military communications paint a picture of vigilance and readiness. But beneath this surface of preparedness, there can be an undercurrent of uncertainty. Wars are not always fought with clear winners and losers. Often they are prolonged struggles, with each side gaining and losing ground in a seemingly endless cycle. The history of warfare is replete with examples where battles ended in stalemates, leaving both sides exhausted and depleted. Victory can be a fluid concept, shifting like the sands of time. What may seem like a triumph today can quickly turn into a setback tomorrow. The ever-changing nature of conflict means that fortunes can reverse in the blink of an eye. Yet certain signs can indicate that a nation is on the precipice of defeat. The collapse of front lines, the retreat of troops, and the loss of strategic positions are all ominous indicators. These events can signal a turning point, where the momentum shifts decisively in favor of the enemy. When ground forces falter, their lines overrun, and their objectives left in ruin, it is a grim portent. The sight of overrun trenches and destroyed vehicles is a stark reminder of the brutal reality of war. It is a visual representation of a force that is losing its grip on the battlefield. When a nation's navy, once rulers of the waves, suffers crippling losses, their ships sunk beneath the depths, it signals a weakening grasp on power. The loss of naval supremacy can have far-reaching consequences, affecting supply lines, troop movements, and overall strategic capabilities. These are not mere setbacks. They are harbingers of potential defeat, a cascade of failures that can erode morale, cripple supply lines, and ultimately determine the fate of a nation. The sight of demoralized soldiers and abandoned equipment is a testament to the toll that sustained conflict can take on a fighting force. The ground trembles under the weight of advancing armies, while the once mighty fleet lies shattered, victims of a relentless enemy. The advance of enemy forces can create a sense of inevitability, as if the tide of war is turning irreversibly against the beleaguered nation. These are the signs of a nation teetering on the brink, desperate to stave off the specter of defeat. The desperation of soldiers in the trenches, their faces etched with fatigue and fear, speaks volumes about the dire situation they find themselves in. However, in the age of nuclear weapons, defeat takes on a whole new meaning. The existence of these weapons of mass destruction has fundamentally altered the nature of warfare. The threat of nuclear annihilation looms large over any conflict, casting a long shadow over traditional notions of victory and defeat. The traditional signs, while still relevant, may be overshadowed by the looming threat of annihilation. A single nuclear detonation can obliterate entire cities, vaporizing flesh and bone in an instant. The sheer destructive power of these weapons is almost beyond comprehension. A single nuclear detonation can obliterate entire cities, vaporizing flesh and bone in an instant. The aftermath of such an event is a scene of utter devastation, with buildings reduced to rubble and the landscape scarred beyond recognition. The ground war, the naval battles, all pale in comparison to the destructive power unleashed by splitting the atom. The traditional theaters of war seem almost insignificant when viewed against the backdrop of a nuclear explosion. In this terrifying new reality, defeat might not be a slow, agonizing descent. It could be a sudden, blinding flash, leaving behind only silence and the faint whisper of radioactive dust. The speed and finality of nuclear destruction are unparalleled in the history of warfare. It could be a sudden, blinding flash, leaving behind only silence and the faint whisper of radioactive dust. The aftermath of such an event is a haunting reminder of the fragility of human civilization. The question is not whether a nation can withstand such a catastrophic blow, but whether humanity itself can survive the consequences. The long-term effects of nuclear war, from radioactive fallout to environmental devastation, pose existential threats to life on Earth. In the face of such overwhelming destruction, the very concept of victory becomes meaningless. Section 2. When SAC takes center stage, a harbinger of nuclear war. Deep within the bowels of command centers, hidden from public view, lies the Strategic Air Command of the United States Air Force. This clandestine hub is a fortress of technology and strategy where every decision could alter the course of history. This is no ordinary military branch. It is the keeper of the nuclear keys, the ultimate deterrent against existential threats. The personnel here are entrusted with the gravest responsibility imaginable, holding the power to unleash devastation or maintain peace. When SAC is activated, it signifies a world on the brink, a world where diplomacy has failed and the unthinkable becomes a chilling possibility. The activation is a signal that all other measures have been exhausted and the spectre of nuclear war looms large. The very air crackles with tension when SAC goes on high alert. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation and fear, as every second counts in this high-stakes scenario. Pilots, trained for this very moment, don their flight suits, their faces etched with a grim determination. These men and women have undergone rigorous training, preparing for a mission they hope never to undertake. The bombers, sleek and deadly, are prepped for takeoff, their payloads capable of unimaginable destruction. Each aircraft is a flying fortress equipped with the most advanced technology and weaponry. It is a sobering reminder of the fragility of peace, a testament to the destructive power humanity holds in its hands. The sight of these bombers in the sky is a stark illustration of the thin line between peace and annihilation. Decon rating, a term not often uttered but heavy with significance, becomes a matter of life and death. This rating determines the level of radioactive contamination and the necessary measures to protect and decontaminate affected areas. It is a measure of radioactive fallout, a way to assess the potential danger zones after a nuclear attack. Scientists and military personnel work together to map out these zones, ensuring that the response is swift and effective. Decon teams clad in protective gear would become the first responders in a nuclear wasteland, tasked with the grim duty of assessing the damage and searching for survivors. Their work is crucial in the aftermath as they navigate through hazardous environments to provide aid and restore some semblance of safety. The activation of SAC and the chilling reality of decon ratings are not mere military exercises. They are a preparation for the worst-case scenario, a readiness to act decisively in the face of unimaginable catastrophe. They are a stark reminder of the high stakes of global politics, a testament to the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation. Political leaders and military officials must constantly navigate this perilous landscape, making decisions that could either avert disaster or trigger it. The world watches, holding its breath, praying that the sirens of war will be silenced before it's too late. In these moments of heightened tension, the hope for peace becomes a collective plea, a desperate wish for a future free from the shadow of nuclear conflict. Section 3. The global fallout, a world engulfed in darkness and dust. The initial blast, a blinding flash of light and heat, is only the beginning of the nightmare. In the aftermath of a nuclear detonation, a sinister rain begins to fall, a silent killer carried by the winds, radioactive fallout. Like a shroud of death, it blankets the land, invisible to the naked eye but deadly in its embrace. This insidious poison contaminates everything it touches: water, soil, even the very air we breathe. The once familiar landscape transforms into an alien world. Cities, once teeming with life, are reduced to smoldering ruins, their skeletal remains casting long shadows across a desolate landscape. The sun, once a source of warmth and life, is now obscured by a thick curtain of dust and debris, plunging the world into a perpetual twilight. The weather, once predictable, becomes erratic and unpredictable. The delicate balance of nature is disrupted, unleashing a torrent of storms, floods, and other extreme events. The planet, wounded and reeling, struggles to cope with the aftermath of nuclear war. Temperatures plummet as the sun's rays are blocked, triggering a nuclear winter that could last for years. This is the legacy of nuclear war, a world poisoned by radiation, shrouded in darkness, and ravaged by a climate gone haywire. It is a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our planet, where the consequences of our actions ripple outwards, touching every corner of the globe. Section 4. A grim tally, immediate casualties and a wounded planet. In the fiery inferno of a nuclear explosion, millions would perish instantly, vaporized in the blink of an eye. The sheer force of the blast would obliterate everything in its path, leaving nothing but a haunting void where life once thrived. Those fortunate enough to survive the initial blast would envy the dead. They would be thrust into a world of unimaginable suffering, where the very air they breathe and the ground they walk on are tainted with death. They would face a world transformed into a living hell, their bodies ravaged by radiation sickness, their minds scarred by the horrors they have witnessed. The symptoms of radiation sickness are brutal and unforgiving, causing immense pain and suffering. The immediate casualties, though staggering in number, would only be the beginning of the tragedy. The infrastructure of entire cities would be reduced to rubble, and the social fabric of communities would be torn apart. The long-term effects of a nuclear war would be even more devastating. The land, once fertile and full of life, would become barren and inhospitable. The very soil would be poisoned, making agriculture nearly impossible. The planet itself would bear the scars for generations to come. Rivers and forests, once teeming with life, would be reduced to desolate wastelands. The natural beauty of our world would be replaced by a grim and lifeless landscape. The delicate balance of the global ecosystem would be shattered, leading to widespread extinctions and unpredictable climate change. The loss of biodiversity would have far-reaching consequences, disrupting the intricate web of life that sustains our planet. The very air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, all would be contaminated by radiation, poisoning future generations. The health impacts would be severe and long-lasting, affecting not just humans but all living creatures. The ozone layer, our planet's fragile shield against the sun's harmful radiation, would be severely depleted, exposing survivors to dangerous levels of ultraviolet radiation. This would increase the risk of skin cancer and other health issues. Cancer rates would skyrocket, birth defects would become commonplace, and life expectancy would plummet. The genetic damage caused by radiation would be passed down through generations, creating a legacy of suffering. The world, as we know it, would cease to exist, replaced by a toxic wasteland where survival would be a daily struggle. The remnants of civilization would be overshadowed by the constant threat of radiation and environmental collapse. The true cost of a nuclear war cannot be measured in mere numbers. It is a profound loss that transcends statistics, affecting the very essence of life on Earth. It is a price that would be paid by every living thing on this planet, a debt that would continue to accrue for generations to come. The environmental and health impacts would be felt for centuries, altering the course of history. It is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the urgent need to prevent such a catastrophe from ever occurring. The preservation of our planet and the well-being of future generations depend on our actions today. We must strive for peace and work together to ensure that such a devastating event never comes to pass.